Welcome to this week's Wellness Wednesday. And this week we have a mini interview with Kirsty Cullen, who is Director of Nutrition here at the Optimum Health Clinic. And we're really exploring a question that we get asked a lot. Well, a series of questions. Should I eat a vegan diet? Should I eat a paleo diet? Should I eat this diet or that diet? Often people have gone deep into researching, understanding specific programs and wonder if they're going to be right for them. That's exactly what we get into in this week's video. So here is Kirsty Cullen. So Kirsty, in this video, we're talking about whether people should go paleo, whether they should go vegan, whether they should go about 100 other different programs that people can come in with. And it's often quite a challenging question, I think, as a practitioner when someone has gone deep into a particular area of reading and research and they've become persuaded by a certain approach. How do you respond to that when someone comes in saying they want to follow a specific program that they believe, the information tells them that that's what they should be doing?
Yeah, and I think it's really topical because there'll always be an ebb and flow and a rise in popularity of different sort of approaches that sort of come and go. And so, for example, at the moment we have, understandably, a lot of people coming to the clinic wanting to follow a vegan approach, for example. It's really, really important for us to acknowledge a client's choice on the basis of whatever it may be: intolerance, ethics, religion, personal choice. Absolutely, those are always taken into consideration and respected. And so we'll have a lot of people coming to us specifically sort of requesting that we follow sort of a vegan protocol, pescatarian, vegetarian, ketogenic, paleo, whatever it may be. We always have to juxtapose that with the overarching aim, which is, of course, health improvement and recovery. And so we need to take whatever dietary approach they're bringing to us and really analyze that to ensure that it covers all of the nutrient requirements that we feel are required for recovery, that it ticks all of those boxes. And not only does the approach in theory tick all those boxes, but also is it executed well? I've seen lots of really good vegetarians. I've seen lots of really bad vegetarians. So actually within the construct of that dietary approach, does it cover what we need it to cover? Does it have all the macronutrients and micronutrients required for recovery? But actually, is that client executing it well? Where do they need support in maybe bringing up certain areas of deficiency sort of within the context of sort of their own dietary choice?
And I guess also what is their own body saying in how that's working for them, right? And so someone comes in and let's say they're on a paleo diet and they're eating large amounts of meat and they're constantly highly acidic and toxic, and every time they eat a kind of steak, whatever, they get brain fog for 3 days. Or indeed someone that's on a vegan diet and their blood sugar's all over the place, and the one day they accidentally had had chicken and they had the best energy they've had in 3 years, but they have now, no, but I have to be on a vegan diet. That often there's that information from one's body is also really important.
Yeah, because obviously sometimes the ethical intent doesn't meet with the biochemistry of the body. Some people naturally need carbohydrates in their body. Some people naturally work better on a high protein, fat-based diet. And sometimes the ethical decision can be very separate to the biochemical need at that particular point in their process. And so that can lead to some, really deep conversations about, okay, if the long-term goal is for you to sort of follow that kind of lifestyle, that's sort of almost separate to what do we need to maybe do in the shorter term, in the midterm, to get your body to a point where it is more robust and it is able to sort of accept variety within the diet and, sort of a slight meandering from a set rule of sort of dietary principles. So sometimes the short-term requirements have to be considered over sort of what the long-term diet might look like.
And I think there's also often I did a video a while back on confirmation bias, and often there is a confirmation bias that comes in both from people following certain programs, but also people that are promoting certain programs. And so, someone is promoting, let's say veganism, and they're writing books about that, they're giving lectures about that, all their friends are following that program, that there tends to be a negation and ignoring of the information that contradicts, and a promoting and sometimes inflating of the information that supports. And that's not just true of veganism, that's true of all programs where there's not just, sometimes it's commercial interest, but often it's also an identity level. Someone identifies as, this represents who I am. And therefore, ignoring the fact that people's bodies are just telling them something that is just not in line with that, I think can be quite challenging sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've lost count of the amount of times where I've given sort of a specific, dietary approach out, which has columns, kind of green foods and red foods, foods that you absolutely shouldn't eat on this approach, and foods that you should. And actually there's a blurring of those concepts based on that particular client. So they may be on a FODMAP diet, be able to eat onions without any issue at all, but they can't eat garlic. And in theory, that doesn't make any sense, because both should be off the list in terms of sort of the potential symptoms. So it's almost as if we have to create our own table. We can take elements of different dietary approaches, but we're creating our own green and red columns based on that individual's response to those particular foods, but also based on where we are in that recovery journey. If we're focusing on the adrenals, and for example, the adrenals need specific nutrients or specific macronutrients, we're going to want to take a slight detour from maybe where our principles are for around sort of 6 to 8 weeks while we complete that work. So it is constant change. So it's not a case of we give one dietary plan at the beginning of the process and that's the same dietary menu that you're looking at or eating or following at the end of the process. It changes, and so it should, sort of, depending on where our focus is.
It reminds me of how we tend to approach things like pacing. The traditional idea of pacing is that you give someone a program and they then follow that, whatever their body says. Like, you need to force your body to follow that program. Mm-hmm. And how our whole thing is, yes, we may come up with a plan, but it's really about finding that in alignment and listening to the needs of one's body. It's really the same thing, I think, here, isn't it? That yes, there's a program that's personalized, and how one's body responds to that is really important information that then is brought into that overall kind of discussion to work with that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, which is why we go back to sort of the question of oversimplifying nutrition. I wish that it was a case of saying, eat a healthy, balanced diet and that's it, there's your recovery. It is more complex. And that's why I think working with a practitioner can become so important, because all of this information can be quite overwhelming. Trying to pick your way through that by yourself can be quite overwhelming. So I think working in partnership with a practitioner is essential, really, to give clarity and reassurance and support through the process.
Because the truth is that each of the kind of programs that one could come up with are great for some people, right? That's why people have written books on and have got all kinds of amazing case studies. It's just, the truth is that what's right for one man's medicine is another man's poison. And it's that really, as you say, working with a practitioner that has that depth of experience to help you decipher that information. There's the information from one's body, there's the information from test results and kind of lab tests that we're doing, and there's the information from all that clinical experience over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to remember is that a body in crisis at the beginning of its recovery journey that is overstimulated and over anxious and overactivated is going to receive food in a very different way than it will when it's feeling recovered, when immune activation has scaled down a few notches, when we've brought the sympathetic nervous system in check. So, again, the approach at the beginning, which might feel quite restricted, by the end of the process will be a lot wider, and we'll have a lot more options there ultimately.
I think that's a really important point, because people sometimes think, oh my God, you're asking me to make all these changes. How the hell am I going to live the rest of my life? But it's reminding them exactly that it's for a period of time to support a healing process in happening.
Yeah.
Kirsty, thank you. I think that's an important one for us to have out there. And I think, if people are watching this and they're feeling triggered, or they're feeling, well, how could you possibly say that, that the program, I always think that when we have a strong reaction like that, that in of itself is something that's worth exploring. So if someone's watching this and feeling, frustrated that, well, you can't say that, going paleo or going keto or going vegan or whatever it is not right. That reaction, I think, is an interesting sign there's some kind of perhaps unhealthy emotional attachment to that program.
Yeah, I would completely agree.
Great. Thanks, Kirsty. I hope that was helpful. If you want to find out more about nutrition here at the Optimum Health Clinic, you can go to theoptimumhealthclinic.com, where you can request a free information pack. You can also book a free 15-minute chat with Kirsty or one of her team of practitioners on the nutrition side. Tomorrow, coming up on Everyday Alex, it's Thoughtful Thursday. And for this week's Thoughtful Thursday, I'm talking about the gift of slowing down. I've just come back from a week in staying at a meditation center in France, where I was working on my next book. And I was very connected to the gift of slowing down. So I want to talk about some of the lessons and some of the reflections from that. So I look forward to talking with you tomorrow.